Good evening and welcome to the December 17th, 2025 meeting of the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners. We have two meetings this evening, a Finance Committee meeting and a Board of Commissioners meeting. Before we start, I ask that you silence your cell phones. There's amplifying equipment available for those who are having difficulty hearing. The room is also equipped with telecoil technology. And later, when the floor is open for public comment, comment will first be taken from those who are present in the room. We're going to ask that you use this podium to your left. Then we will turn to anyone who is attending virtually by Zoom. It is the practice of the board to respond to comments only after all comments have been made, and we ask that you introduce yourself before beginning your comments. So with that, we'll turn to our first committee meeting of the evening. That's the Finance Committee. I recognize its chair, Commissioner Zeloff.
Thank you, President Sinai. There's one item on tonight's Finance Committee agenda. It is for consideration of a property and liability insurance carrier change. To get things moving, I will move that the Finance Committee recommend to the Board of Commissioners authorizing the Township Manager to accept the proposal received from Kilmer Group, Keystone Insurers Group for property and liability insurance coverage effective January 1, 2026 at a cost of $852,000, wishful thinking, $852,536. And I will add to the motion that the Finance Committee recommend to the board to amend the proposed 2026 budget to decrease the Finance Department by $112,350 to reflect savings associated with acceptance of the Kilmer Group, Keystone Insurers Group property and liability insurance coverage proposal. And the general fund will decrease $151,880. The sanitary sewer fund will decrease $23,770. The solid waste fund will decrease $70,100. And the equipment fund will increase in expenditure $133,220. Do I have a second? I do, from Commissioner Bernheim. I will call on our Township Manager for an explanation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, we shopped the property and liability insurance coverage for the township and have come upon a proposal here from the Keystone Insurers Group. They have a Keystone Municipal Insurance Program that insures a number of municipalities across the state. Their price amounts to a savings of a little over $100,000 a year for the township in order to move to their insurance coverage. This would have us leaving the Delaware Valley Trust, which was the next closest proposal, a renewal proposal. But was about $103,000 more expensive. The budget mod that Commissioner Zeloff read sounds a little strange in that the savings accrue to various funds, and that's because the pricing is different in terms of different pieces of the policy. In this case, their automobile rates are higher, which that cost goes to the equipment fund, while the general liability, public officials liability, police liability, and cyber coverage were all lower than our renewal quotes. So therefore, the savings get spread to different funds differently. But this is what we think is a good proposal that saves us over $100,000 a year. Our risk manager, Mark Santaleri, is in the audience here in case you have any specific questions about the policy. He's worked with me to shop the coverages and make sure that all of our coverages are at least as good or better. In some cases, they're better. We're actually reducing our deductible in some lines of coverage from $25,000 per claim to $10,000 per claim. So we'll save on that end as well. Be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ernie. We'll start with public comment. Are there any members of the public with us this evening in the room who have any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, Jody, are there any on Zoom who have any questions or comments?
No one actually signed up for Zoom this evening.
Okay. Now it's time for committee questions or comments. I will start by thanking Ernie and Mark for pursuing alternate coverage. It was, a change was probably needed, and we found a carrier with the same coverage or better coverage at a lower premium. So we very much appreciate that. Committee members with questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Madam Secretary, we're off to a good start. That motion passes unanimously. President Sinai, that completes the work of the Finance Committee for this evening.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Zelov. So with that, we'll turn to the Board of Commissioners meeting for this evening, and will the December 17th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Lower Merion please come to order, and all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Bernheim.
Present.
Mr. Churchill. Here. Mr. Courtney. Here. Ms. Epstein. Here. Mr. Gavin.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Grimes.
Here.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Here.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Here.
Dr. Rossman.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson. Present. Mr. Whalen.
Here.
Mr. Woodring.
Here.
Mr. Zelov.
Here.
Mr. Sinai.
Here.
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. So the next item on our agenda is a bittersweet one, at least for those of us who are continuing on the board, and probably a happy moment for those who are finishing. We have commissioners who are the people on this board spend a lot of time, work very hard, and are dedicated public servants to this township. And one of the real treasures of being on this board is getting to know the people that we are working closely with and calling them both colleagues and friends. And we have 5 of those who are leaving the board this evening. They will be replaced by new people who, in turn, years down the road, we're going to say the same thing about them as we're going to do about the people tonight, which is that they are irreplaceable. And we are losing people that we treasure, and we're going to replace them with people who will be treasured for different reasons. This is a really terrific group here, and I'm going to be very sad to see the people go. But we're going to celebrate them. Enough talking for me. Vice President Kramer is going to join me in the Oval, and each of the 5 commissioners is going to come down one by one, and we'll do that when we get down there. And so first, let's start with Board 2. I'd like to invite Commissioner Grimes and also Commissioner Dr. Rossman to come down to the Oval.
You stand there. Beginning of the roast, okay? And I want you to take a look. Just look at everyone's eyes, okay?
Before you start, just keep it, my wife is right here.
Oh, okay. Randy, hi. So, disregard the first half. I've known Josh Grimes for a long time. Long enough to remember in the 1990s, the sporting club and a different version of fitness culture. Josh and I would meet there at 5 a.m., work out until 6 a.m., and from the very beginning, I noticed something remarkable. Every beautiful woman in the entire gym somehow found her way to Josh, including my daughter. I was a little scared about that. He'd be on the Stairmaster, and suddenly he'd be surrounded by an audience, fit, enthusiastic, and completely ignoring the rest of us. It was a sight you couldn't miss. And honestly, it became part of the morning entertainment. We in the men's locker room would wonder, what did he have that would attract all these people? Eventually,
You realize I'm not going to be able to go home now.
we have a guest room upstairs. Okay. Eventually, I started working out at the Art Museum steps and thinking perhaps I might escape the spectacle. But there he was again, Josh, running up and down the steps like Rocky's more handsome cousin. He'd run up the steps, he'd run down the steps, he'd run back to the sporting club, shower, and then head off to work. Later, I learned the real reason for all this running was he was simply trying to stay ahead of all the women chasing him, doing everything he could to preserve his marriage to Randy. Say thank you, Randy. But behind the good looks and the Stairmaster fan club is the real Josh, the one who has mentored so many of us. Josh is the person who pulled me into the HAC, the Health Advisory Council of Lower Merion Township, and then somehow convinced me to run for office. He has always been ready with a suggestion, encouragement, solid, thoughtful advice. You want a Kleenex? Oh, yeah, okay. He reads everything, he understands everything, and as a lawyer, he is outstanding. Thorough, principled, and impossible to fool. He brings a voice to the board that is grounded in preparation, due diligence, honesty, and conviction. His contributions, your contributions, will be deeply missed. Now, it's true, Josh can occasionally be a curmudgeon. Anybody notice that about Josh?
Gertie's laughing.
Okay. But he's a lovable curmudgeon. He challenges all of us, but always with a purpose, always with thought, and always on behalf of the people he represents. No one has fought harder for his corner of Penn Valley and Gladwin than Josh Grimes. If you ever need to find him, just look around. He pops up everywhere. On the Kinwood Trail at 5 a.m., on the Ben Franklin Bridge on Thanksgiving, or some other location where the rest of us would never expect to be awake, let alone exercising. Josh, my friend, I wish you continued health and great adventures. You have a wonderful family, and you are a devoted father and husband. You hear that, Randy? We will miss you greatly, though your family may eventually regret having you back full-time. Thank you, Josh, for your service, for Lower Merion, and for your friendship to each of us. Thank you.
It's actually hard to respond to that, but let me start. Lou, thank you very much. Let me say to everyone, as some people on the board certainly know, Lou performed not just one, but 2 root canals on me. And if you don't have this kind of relationship with your endodontist, you're doing something wrong. So, thank you. So, and before I get to the very brief prepared remarks, let me also say that serving on this board has not just been a reunion with Dr. Rossman, but also 2 others. Commissioner Zelov and I were served on a condominium board in Center City together 30 years ago, Scott?
Long ago.
When we were like 8 years old each. And I have to say, I was the president of the board at the time. And also, our solicitor, Gil High, Gil and I have known each other, at least I've known Gil. He was the solicitor of Cheltenham Township when I was in high school, when Gil was 15-year-old graduate of law school. And Gil and I have had this conversation. He doesn't remember me, and I don't know that I would have either, but I believe I interviewed him for the Cheltonian about something or other. So it's been great working with him, not only as a skilled solicitor, but also having this reunion after so many years. So, my prepared remarks, and I just did this so I don't go off on a tangent, as I'm known to do. As my time on the board comes to a close, I find myself thinking back on some of the highlights of my tenure. When I was first approached to serve, I was assured by a former board president that it involved only 2 Wednesday nights a month and an occasional evening with friendly residents at the local civic association. By the way, former president, it was not Dan. In retrospect, I'm lucky this former president also didn't try to sell me bridge number 6. Inside joke. Yes. Or maybe not funny. I was first appointed by vote of the Board of Commissioners in June 2015. I was not the board's unanimous choice, as my opponent was well known for throwing the wildest pool parties in Gladwin. I'm still not totally clear if I was the better choice. More seriously, or maybe on the same plane since people don't find this funny, I've tried to dedicate my board service to improving quality of life in the township. This included promoting responsible development, open space, historic preservation, and prudent fiscal policy. During my tenure, we saved 3 of our most important historic assets for future generations: the St. Charles Borromeo campus, Barker Mill, and the Dorrance Estate. I'm proud that our board staff and the community were able to work together to preserve those irreplaceable properties. As a commissioner, one cannot accomplish anything alone, and I want to recognize and thank our township staff and all commissioners, past and present, who served with me for all their efforts. I've also valued my relationships with other elected officials at the school district, as well as other municipalities, and I know Mayor Deutsch from Narberth is here, so thank you, and also at the county, state, and federal levels. Finally, and this is not just because she's in front of me and I want to go home tonight, I want to thank my wife, Randy, who's listened to just about every war story and frustration that goes with this job over the past 10.5 years. Frankly, I don't know how she's done it, and I'm sure many of you don't either. Family and close friends are in many ways the unsung heroes of our board service. I also want to recognize our 2 sons, Andrew and Adam, who were both at Harriton High School when I started and are now living productive lives as a public school teacher and congressional staffer. Although I've learned that nothing embarrasses your kids, although I've learned that nothing embarrasses your kids more than watching their dad featured on a Harriton TV broadcast while you're sitting in homeroom surrounded by your classmates. By the way, for those who don't remember, that was on the parking issue on Ithan Road, where I was the only one to vote against it and became a big hero on, at least for a few kids at Harriton. In closing, thanks to everyone here for your past, present, and future efforts to make Lower Merion a better place. I greatly appreciate your support and friendship. Thank you.
Thank you. Now turning to Ward 4, the outgoing commissioner is Anthony Stevenson, and to recognize him, we have Ray Courtney.
Thank you, President Sinai. I'm honored to talk about my friend and colleague, Commissioner Anthony Stevenson, tonight. I am somewhat surprised that one of us isn't on Zoom right now. We appear together so infrequently in this room. I'm pretty sure there are some people who think that I'm Clark Kent to your Superman.
Nobody thinks that.
Over the past several years, Commissioner Stevenson has become a friend of my family. And so last night at dinner, I said, tomorrow night's Anthony's last day. What should I say about it? My son answered first, who? And he said, oh yeah, that guy. Which, my son's in middle school. Just acknowledging the question is a great compliment to you. My daughter dodged the question and just asked if she could be on camera while I did it. And then my wife, who knows me all too well, said, Ray, just say nice things. And then she told me a story, and I'll just paraphrase it briefly. She said, at one point, you called me your little brother who talks too much. So let me reciprocate. You've been like my big brother who doesn't talk enough. Because when you do speak out here, you're a strong advocate for your community. You express gratitude for the hard work and effort of others. And you stress being a servant leader, right? So when it snowed this past weekend, I was reminded of how bad you made the rest of us look when we stayed warm inside while you shoveled your neighbors' sidewalks. And a few days ago, I asked you what you were proudest of, and unsurprisingly, you mentioned being seen as a servant leader and the fulfillment of the goals of your campaign 8 years ago. So your philosophy of servant leadership encourages us all to make sacrifices to help others, to bring up everyone in the community, and to strike a balance between the desires of our individual constituents and the needs of the future of this township. When you joined the board 8 years ago, the reconstruction of the Ardmore Avenue Community Center had been shelved indefinitely, and it was your work and your advocacy that resurrected that idea. Because of your efforts, we asked for a new plan, and we put a $10 million commitment into the CIP. We then used a significant portion of our American Rescue Plan funds to ensure that the community center would move forward. Because of you, Anthony, a temporary structure long past its intended life has been remade and made permanent in Lower Merion Township. You have spoken passionately about the double-edged sword of zoning, using it cautiously to preserve the housing and the character of Ardmore while warning against the discriminatory practices of the past. Your efforts to promote affordable housing in our community have contributed to the new construction of Ardmore House 2 and our recently received affordable housing plan. I rewatched the comments you made on the plan last week, and I will carry a few of your statements with me. I'm going to butcher them now. Our community is becoming inaccessible to the people who work here, grew up here, and hope to retire here. Doing nothing undermines economic stability and fairness, and we must choose collectively to make room for economic diversity in the future of our township. It was an incredible valediction for you to leave on, a statement of purpose, a challenge presented, and a solution offered. Thank you for your service and your leadership in our township.
Thank you, Ray. You were invited to my funeral to make comments. Uncharacteristically, I will be brief and say that it has been my honor to serve for the past 8 years. When I took this office on, I did it with the commitment that I wanted to make a difference in those things, and I wanted to be a servant leader for the members of the community. And I wanted folks to be heard and be seen. I want to thank the township manager, the employees of the township. I want to thank the members of this board who are extraordinary members of a group of people who are all equally dedicated for the betterment of this community, even if we go a different way about getting there. And I want to thank, most importantly, not only the citizens of the 4th Ward, but the entire Lower Merion, because this is the community we live in. And I'll just leave on this. I'm not going away on some issues because we have an obligation to continue this hard work that needs to be done, and most importantly, ensuring that our community is a knit community that is interwoven together as one community. And I think that's the most important thing that we have to keep in mind. Thank you so much.
We now turn to Ward 6. The outgoing commissioner is Andy Gavrin, and to recognize him, we have Commissioner Scott Zelloff.
Thank you. Andy, you may remember that rainy day. It was election day when you and I first met, and you were running against my friend and my colleague, and you beat him. But even he now says you've done a great job as commissioner, and I do too. You may remember that very first meeting. I was chairing a committee, and I was sitting there, and you were sitting at the end as new commissioners do, and you raised your hand, and I called on you, Commissioner Garvin. Because I had determined to get your name right, and I didn't that night. But I think I did every night after that. Andy, now I go to my speech. Like me, you're a proud Cornell alum. I even see you occasionally at my church. You served for 8 years and you have accomplished so much. We worked together with Haverford Township on the polo field. That was tough duty. We have been working at keeping billboards out of Bryn Mawr. And all those Save Oakwell signs, Oakwell has been saved. And it's because of your tremendous work with your neighbors, with Stoneleigh. And it all started with the Black Rock Middle School. I don't think it would be there without you. And you learned when the Save Stoneleigh initiative, which was just underway as you started. After 2 years of service, you were elected vice president. You served for 4 years, and then you stepped down from power, sort of like George Washington did. I bet you never thought you'd be compared to George Washington. You communicated extremely well with the residents of Ward 6. You love sidewalks. You love preservation. You get a little carried away with that once in a while. And you do what you think is right, and you're not afraid to be the lone no vote. I can relate. And most importantly, you treated taxpayer money like it was yours. You're careful with our money, you watch our spending, and you made it easy as we served as finance co-chairs for 2 years. Chris McGuire, are you listening? In that role, you led the effort in changing the solid waste fund fees. You even wrote the memo. The multi-page detailed memo was really something. And then during a few Ardmore Memorial Day parades, you and Mike McKeon, former commissioner, in what might be the highest ratings ever on LMTV, you held a talk show and an interview show. I even made it onto the interview list. And then you had a show, not behind the gavel, but beside the gavel. Now, I'm not sure the ratings were very good on that show. But you made us laugh, well, at least you made me laugh most of the time. And you know, Andy, you would have been a great register of wills. I even went to one of your fundraisers. Maybe it's in your future. And we will miss you. Well, at least I will miss you. Chris, you have big shoes to fill. Andy, I wish you the best, my friend, and I hope you enjoy your Wednesdays.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Scott. And you did campaign very hard against me. And if you knew then what you know now, you would probably have campaigned just a little harder for Phil. You know, when I joined this board in 2017, I was young and eager. I didn't even have any gray hair yet. Early on, I gave a long speech in a vote against a development project. And Dan Bernheim, after the meeting, came up to me and he said, Andy, you've got to keep it short, because if you talk too long, people are going to stop listening. And I've tried to heed this advice throughout my time on the board, but right now you may want to start scrolling social media, because this is going to go on for a while. I want to thank my fellow commissioners, past and present. I'm incredibly grateful for everything you've taught me, for the good we've done for this township, and especially for the friendships. I'm proud of what we've accomplished together. There were a lot of tangible successes, you know, curbing out-of-control development, protecting St. Charles, as Josh said, building a new middle school, passing the leaf blower ban, and of course, saving Oakwell. But what I'm most proud of is the stuff that's happened behind the scenes. When I came onto this board, meetings routinely went past midnight. You can't do good work after meeting for 6-7 hours. That was for you, Maggie. And it wasn't fair to our residents or staff. Now we start whining when meetings go past 10. We put into place a rigor around setting priorities, thanks to Todd, eliminating an amendment free-for-all during budget discussions, mostly. And we turned a historically terrible relationship with the school board on its head, so that now both elected boards can effectively work together on behalf of our township residents. While these process changes may not have garnered 8 hours of public comment like some of our other initiatives, they have set this board up to govern better than it ever has in the future. And speaking of governing, I'm going to give some unsolicited advice to the next board. Politics gets a bad name, and rightfully so. So many people go into politics for power and for money, and because of that, they make decisions that compromise their values or benefit themselves over those they represent. Thankfully, that's extremely rare here in Lower Merion. Do what you believe is right for the township. Speak your mind up on the dais, do it succinctly, and always vote your conscience, whether it's the deciding vote or on the wrong side of a 13-to-1 vote. If you're not doing that, why are you even here? During these past 8 years, I put my head on my pillow at night, being proud of staying true to myself every single time. Don't be afraid to vote for change, no matter how big or small, whether it's pickleball or Oakwell or anything else. Change will receive significant pushback. Don't let that dissuade you. Change and improvement, new amenities, improving Ardmore, or whatever else comes down the pike in these next coming years is what keeps Lower Merion vibrant. And also have fun. Take this job seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. Sorry, I jumped to page 12. It's okay to crack a joke, wear a Chewbacca costume on May the 4th and lighten the mood. Do this job with joy and a smile. You work too hard for it not to be fun. I'm almost done, I promise. But I do want to thank some people. Thanks, first of all, to my residents for electing me twice. Thanks a lot. Also to Chris McGuire, I learned in a previous job that success is having the person who succeeds you be better than you and raise the bar. And on that metric, I am a huge success here on the board. Chris, you're going to be an absolutely wonderful commissioner. The board may be the face of this township, but it's the staff that makes Lower Merion world-class. I am constantly amazed at how Ernie and Brandon are able to stay on top of everything going on across this township. Truly are the best in the business. We are an ambitious board, and we keep our department heads on their toes, and they always rise to the challenge. Thanks to all of you for all the work you do. But we really know who's doing the work to keep this township humming. It's every police officer who keeps us safe. It's every clerk in building and planning who processes permits. It's every firefighter who runs into the buildings when they're on fire. Everyone who picks up our trash and recycling. Every accountant who makes sure we're not spending more than we should. People say that government's inefficient. They've never seen Lower Merion. I would put this organization up against any Fortune 500 company. And there's one employee in particular I'd like to thank, and if you're watching, Lori Jennings, it is not you. It's our township secretary, Jody Kelly. She has 14 bosses. Actually, let me correct myself. She has 14 incredibly difficult bosses, and somehow she manages us. And she does so with a joy and a smile and a love for her job in this township. Not that we typically look good, but when we do, you can bet a big part of it is because Jody has prepared us incredibly well. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there are 3 amazing young ladies that I want to thank, my daughters. They were babies when I came on this board, and now they're on the verge of becoming adults. When I decided to run, I did so because I wanted to show them the importance of serving your community. During COVID, Maya created signs for our public spaces, reminding people to keep socially distanced. Rachel is exploring EMT classes so she can volunteer with Narberth Ambulance. And Dahlia is the youngest cadet at Gladwin Fire Company. I could not be more proud of the 3 of them. And finally, thanks to everyone here for bearing with me, not only during this speech, but during these 8 years. Serving as a township commissioner truly has been the honor of my lifetime. Thank you for trusting me with that responsibility.
You're in the middle. There we go.
Thank you. We now turn to Ward 8, and that is the outgoing commissioner, is Vice President Kramer, and to recognize her is Commissioner Sean Whalen. This one side.
Thank you, President Simon. The sheer nervousness on Vice President Kramer's face. No, again, as usual, Andy ruined it for us all. Jody just told me that I'm going to get that 3-minute timer that everybody out here hates, so we got to be quick. No. In all reality, my story doesn't go back 30 years or anything. We've only known each other for 4. Wish it were longer. And this story really goes back 1 year. It was almost exactly a year ago, I don't know if you remember this, that you pulled me aside after a meeting and said, hey, Sean, can we talk after the meeting? And I thought, yes, she's running for US Senate. I'm gonna, I wanna see how this happens, what's going on, I'm in. Unfortunately, it was you telling me that you were not running and you were not going to stay here. So we were sadly left with only 1 year of you on the board. So what does any self-respecting commissioner do when you're faced with this horrible situation? I went with shameless groveling. It, as you can tell, did not work. Sean still decided to leave, but that was what I had to go with. So if anybody, and I think everybody in this room really does know Vice President Kramer, over the 4 years that she's been here, she has truly been the heartbeat of this board. I think, we all hear about it with different sports teams and everything. There's always kind of one person who drives forward the organization. And for me, that really has been you. And I think that that's kind of the unsung part of your leadership here. And we all know that Commissioner Kramer generally has gotten what she wants and driven forward an amazing number of priorities, although Todd told me I'm not allowed to go for half an hour, so I have to keep it limited. Over your 4 years, Sean, you have guided, you have cajoled, you have implored, you've even gotten a little physical at times, I'm just saying. But the trick to Sean's leadership that I think, again, everybody in this room really knows is that it's never forceful, it's never confrontational. What it is you realize after you've had a conversation with her that her position was always your position all along. You just hadn't realized it yet. And so I think that subtle leadership as you drive us forward to literally a laundry list of essential accolades of what and accomplishments. And these I actually had to write down because I couldn't remember them all. The parental leave policy, which I am extremely proud of, and I think many of us on the commission didn't realize that the township didn't have one. We now have one because of Commissioner Kramer. That in and of itself. Kudos to you for, and this, I'm going to give you a short list. This list is very long of the things that Commissioner Kramer saw and then got something accomplished. No whining, no discussion, just how do I get to the bottom of this? Who can help me? How do I drive this forward? She has been an advocate for Code Blue, affordable housing, mental health counseling and interventions. Really, you were a vital and driving force in the Ardmore Initiative revitalization. And one thing that, I think it's actually good, Sergeant Ischwitz is here, Superintendent Block. You, along with both of them, have really been vital to this township over the last 4 years in reinvigorating the township, the police force, bettering that relationship, focusing on community policing, and bringing us all together, driving forward together with one vision, as opposed to kind of the disparate place where we all were when I started on this board. And so again, kudos to you. Thank you, Superintendent Block, and thank you very much, Sergeant Ischwitz. So with that, I will say the only foible that we are all very aware of for Commissioner Kramer, and the desperate look on your face, is that she is so allergic to the microphone. And we have to tell her all the time, bring the microphone. We all want to hear your words, and I, hopefully not for one, am very excited to see where you go from here. I'm sure it's somewhere spectacular. keep the microphone close because we want to hear those words.
It may come as no surprise that I did not prepare remarks. I don't like the microphone, it's true. But I want to first thank my husband, Tom, who has been a constant source of encouragement and strength, and he's the brains in the operation for real. And all of our families who really are unsung heroes. I want to thank the residents of Ward 8 for hiring me. And I'm really looking forward to going back to just being your neighbor again and attending the Ardwood meetups. And if there's a heaven, there's a special place in it for public servants, whether you're elected, whether you're appointed, or whether you're an employee. The work is thankless, the pay is meh, at best. The job is never done, but I know that everyone who takes it on because they believe in democracy, they believe in local government, they believe in selfless service, and I'm just getting a little verklempt. I'm just so grateful to know that there are so many very fine, talented, giving people in our midst. And last, I would just like to say how grateful I am to my fellow commissioners for allowing me to assume the role of vice president and to work alongside President Sinai, who is a model of good governance and true leadership by example. So thank you.
And our last outgoing commissioner is Commissioner Churchill from Ward 14. And to recognize him, we have Commissioner Dan Bernheim.
This is like the Academy Awards. I get the commissioner, in the leading role of whatever. So, actually, Rick, when I was asked to, speak about you, I honestly felt as honored as I could be from the 15-plus years that I've had on this board, and recognizing that you have served on this board for at least 15 years. I was, trying to figure out, how long that service was. So I did the proverbial back of the napkin calculations, and 15 years, and I figured, all right, at least 3 Wednesdays a month, for 12 months over 15 years, that's 540 Wednesdays. And if the average, hour meeting was 5 hours, and yes, that's been lowered thanks to, Todd being at the helm, I figured, all right, 5 times 540, we're already up to, 2,700 hours. Then if you add the civics and the other meetings and, put those in there, I had about another, 270 meetings there, and gave those, so their hourly, average, another 600 plus hours. And I came up with at least 3,321 hours. And I'm sure that's about 50% off, which since it's budget night, that's permissible. And, all of that time in here, you can certainly have this. And in your spare time, maybe you can tell us why people write just on the back of the napkin and not the front. But in any event, Rick, how does one, I was thinking, thank somebody for all of those years of service? And you may recall when I was first appointed to the board before elected, you and I sat where Dr. Commissioner Rossman is, and you sat where Commissioner G. Kramer is. And long before Rick had a ponytail, he was a school teacher. And I recall getting an email from my mother who was an avid watcher and commentator, stating to me that something along the lines that she could tell that I was doing work and not paying attention, and that was rude. I had to write back to her that that was false. I was not doing my work, that what I was doing was regrading your papers. That I had noted that nobody should get an A when they had 6 grammatical errors in the first 2 paragraphs, and that you were really just too kind, and that I was teaching the teacher, and I informed her that's called multitasking. Well, the truth of the matter is, the teacher taught me. And I recall we had a board at the time that was not as collegial as the board that we have now. And there were moments I was ready to jump out of my seat, and Rick would be like, relax, down, Fido, and to try to calm me down. And I learned from you, as you were always very careful about what you said and when and how you said it, and very deliberate about that. Always from that moment onward, you would always ask questions of our manager then, who was Doug Cleland, and our manager now, Ernie McNeely, always on target, questions of somebody else probably had, but that they did not bring forth. And I tried to take that lesson to heart. I also recall that I then had to run a campaign. And the worst for me was going and asking people to do something. It's just not my nature. And then you were telling me the importance of going door to door, and I cringed. And you recall you showed up at my house and like taking a little boy down the street, and we went door to door. And what I learned from that lesson that you taught me was the importance of communicating with your constituents, of talking to them and getting their feedback and learning from them. And that was as valuable as a lesson of any which you were able to impart upon me, and I think that's something that undoubtedly you did for your constituents within your immediate ward. During the time you were on the board, and this I had to write down somewhere, of all the different committees that you have been on, and there have been quite a few, that, let's see, Rick served on the library committee and had to remind us at the time the libraries were more than just books and all of the programs that they ran. You've served as the chair of the Administration and Human Resource Committee, so when we were hiring people, educating us about who it was. Chair of the Township Properties and Open Space. You also served with me on the Fire Committee. You've served on Public Works, and you've served in the Economic Revitalization Committee. And if you get the idea, Rick is a master of many, many trades within the community, all of which we have been a benefit of your services. But what comes to mind are 2 things when I think of Rick Churchill. One is sidewalks. For the longest time, when somebody would talk about sidewalks, the mantra was, in the response, in Lower Merion, we do not ordain sidewalks. Nobody has been an advocate longer and more forcefully than Rick Churchill. That was not an answer he would accept. And first it was around Penguin Elementary. And then also, you may recall, this board did spend almost 2 hours debating a sidewalk around a tree. And we now have ordinances, and we now actually have a program for the administration of sidewalks. And if somebody does their homework to reach back in time where that is, those dots connect back right before you hit the Mayflower, they hit Rick Churchill as the one who has been the proponent of sidewalks. And each and every time one is put into play, you will be who we think of. So I said to you there were 2 things. That was one. The other is during the pandemic, when the only 2 people who were here in this boardroom for the board meetings was the township secretary and myself when I had the privilege of serving as president. That was it. Everybody else was on Zoom, and Zoom was a new technology. We were all trying to get used to it and understand it, even from the fundamentals of how do you get yourself in front of the camera. And for the longest time, Rick, all that we saw was your forehead, and we saw the ceiling fan. Like you had one of those beanies on with the propellers or something. And, well, we noted that as well. And, when you had to then vote, you have to say, couldn't say all in favor, say aye. You had to say, raise your hand, and for Rick, raise yours really high. Well, that's not the only thing that you raised. What you have done is you have raised the bar for all of us and for your successor. And if I may, I am sure those who've had the privilege of voting for you on several occasions are very, very grateful for your service, but so is the entire township. We have been a benefit because of all that you have done, and we will miss you, my friend. Thank you very much.
The secret is that the board leadership would not let me retire until I'd said 1,000 words in public. It took 16 years. I'm going to take this opportunity to make two comments that are close to my heart. And the first is, if I had my way, I would make December 23rd a national holiday, because it celebrates George Washington's peaceful transfer of the Continental Army to the civilian control in Annapolis, Maryland. Commissioner Zeloff made note of that earlier today, and I would just say that King George III of England, when he heard that, he said, "Really? He must be the greatest man of the age." My second remark centers on what will occur here in Lower Merion and across our country next month, and that is the peaceful transfer of political power. We've done it so long, we can't imagine it occurring otherwise. For those who are leaving, there's a sense of relief, but there's also a sense of accomplishment that Lower Merion remains one of the best-run townships in the nation. And for those that are ascending their position without rancor and with a mandate to make Lower Merion even a better place to live, to me, this is democracy at its finest. And I'm glad to be a part of it, and I thank you, and goodbye.
Just cover his tie.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. So while we have celebrated these outgoing commissioners, they are not done yet. We still have one more meeting to do, and it is that we will turn to next. So I am going to start with a motion to approve the minutes of a special meeting of the Board of Commissioners held on November 12th, 2025, and a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held on November 19th, 2025 as distributed. Do I have a second? Thank you, Vice President Kramer. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Madam Secretary, that passes unanimously. A few announcements. The board met in executive session on December 3rd, December 10th, and earlier this evening regarding the following matters: litigation regarding real estate taxes and other various complaints, billboard litigation, and Centennial Road storm sewer litigation. Thursday, December 25th, 2025, Christmas Day, and Thursday, January 1st, 2026, New Year's Day are legal holidays. The Township Administration Building and libraries will be closed for business, and there will be no refuse or recycling collection on those days. The 64th biennial reorganization meeting of the Board of Commissioners will be held on Monday, January 5th, 2026 at 7 p.m. in the boardroom of the Township Administration Building. So two things about that. One is it's on a Monday. The second is the 64th biennial reorganization. I can do the math. That's 128 years for this board. Really a tremendous organization to be a part of. Monday, January 19th, 2026, Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a legal holiday. The Township Administration Building and libraries will be closed for business, and there will be no refuse or recycling collection. So with that, we're going to turn to public privilege of the floor. Excuse me. This is the section of our meeting where members of the public may address the board on any non-agenda item, so none of the items on agenda, just something else, or any other public matters in which the township has jurisdiction or authority. So if you plan to address the board, we're going to ask that you use this podium to your left. If no one's on Zoom, you can skip that part. And if you wish to speak, we just ask that you state your name, where in the township you live, or what organization you represent prior to beginning your comments. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. There is a timer, and it will beep after 3 minutes, and it will not stop beeping. So we ask that you just be mindful of that so we can get through all comments this evening. And to practice the board to respond to comments at the end after everyone has spoken. So does anyone wish to take advantage of public privilege? Please just come right up. You don't have to ask permission, just do it.
Good evening, Board of Commissioners. And good evening, public. My name is John McMahon, and I live in Lower Merion, and I spent most of my life in Lower Merion. And I come to you now this evening as a very, very concerned citizen to bring to your attention what I view as a very serious public health crisis in this township. Not only in this township, but throughout the state of Pennsylvania and, in fact, our country. But I'm going to focus on our township. I've been a lawyer for 38 years, and I only tell you that to put this in the context. I spent 3 years as a Montgomery County prosecutor prosecuting narcotics cases. Since 1990, I've primarily practiced criminal defense work. Through my 38 years as a lawyer, I have seen the devastation again and again and again of the opioid crisis. The devastation to our young people, families, and communities. It seems like people don't think about this as much these days. We've been distracted a bit. I tell you now that there is a major public health crisis brewing in Lower Merion Township. Right now it is a small fire. Eventually, it will become a very large fire. What am I speaking about? Have any of you ever heard of a substance known as kratom? Probably most of you haven't. I didn't really know much about it myself until a few years ago. Well, kratom is easily accessible in various locations throughout Lower Merion Township. You may see vape shops. You may see smoke shops. They inundate communities throughout not only Lower Merion and Montgomery County, the state and the country. Kratom is sold freely in these locations, and it is a very dangerous drug. It is a drug that grows in Malaysia. It is a plant, and out of that plant, the substance is derived. It is illegal in Malaysia. It is illegal in at least a dozen or so countries. It is illegal in 7 states in the United States. It is illegal in Sarasota County, Florida. Why? The reason is because this substance, although not an opiate per se, mimics the effects of opiates and heroin on the human brain, and that is well documented. Our rehabs, our rehabilitation centers are dealing with the opioid crisis. It is getting worse. All right, so here's what I want to say to you. I have packets that I would like to hand up so you can educate yourself. I'm going to ask you, can I hand this to somebody? I'm going to ask you to seriously investigate this issue. And ultimately, I'm going to urge you to pass an ordinance outlawing the sale of kratom in Lower Merion Township, which I believe you have the authority to do. It's been done in Sarasota County. It's been done in other places.
Thank
I ask you to protect our children.
So, Alice wish to take advantage of public privilege?
Good evening. My name is John Yashevitz. I'm the president of the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 28. I represent our township's active and retired police officers here in the township. I just want to talk to you today about, we came here to stand with you, President Todd Sinai, Vice President Sean Kramer, and the vast majority of the Board of Commissioners, Township Manager Ernie McNeely, and Assistant Township Manager Brandon Ford. We're here to stand with you. Why are we here to stand with you? To thank you for your strong commitment to the public safety of Lower Merion Township, to our residents, to our visitors, our officers, by fully committing to a fully staffed and fully funded police department. We as police officers truly enjoy working here in our Lower Merion Township community. We strive to provide police excellence and services. We have, over the past few years, been through a lot as a community together, but we've become stronger. We've developed strong relationships with our residents, our visitors, our commissioners, our township staff, and our new superintendent, Andy Block. We hope to continue to build on these relationships in the coming days, weeks, months, and years to maintain and improve the second-to-none police services that we provide for our community. We stand with you here today because of your commitment to public safety through a fully funded, fully staffed police department. We'd also like to take the time to thank you for Superintendent Andy Block, who leads and shepherds our department through its core values of integrity, professionalism, and respect. He has already made strides of furthering the quality of our police services, our department's morale, our community engagement, and our community outreach. We can only imagine what Andy can do and accomplish when he has a fully staffed police department. Once again, we stand with you when we thank you for your commitment to public safety by committing to a strong, fully staffed, and fully funded police department. Thank you all. And also thank for all of you that are outgoing. You'll be truly missed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Chris McGuire, Ward 6. In support of what Judge-elect McMahon said this evening earlier, this is a bottle of Kratom. It's 150 milligrams, and I purchased it this evening in a gas station in Lower Merion. I had my choice of 5 different strengths going up to 375 milligrams. The gas station attendant looked at me and he said, "Is that all for you?" And I said, "Why? Why do you ask?" And he said, "That's a lot." And I was at the 150 dosage. So I said, "Well, actually, I'm going to talk about this evening in a township meeting." And he said, "Good. I'm glad to hear that." This drug is inexpensive. That was $10.59. And it's easy to take. It's accessible. And there's really nothing to it. You just drink it. It mimics the opioid receptors. And I have a lot of science here that I was going to talk about, but we'll do that another time. I also want you to know that this has been banned, as Judge-elect McMahon stated, in multiple places in the United States. It's also been banned entirely all over Europe, the United Kingdom, Ireland, Latvia, Italy, Switzerland, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Russia, Sweden, and Turkey. But most notably, after only an hour and a half of my grad students doing some research this afternoon, it's banned in Malaysia, which is where it's grown. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to take advantage of public privilege? Okay, seeing none, we are going to turn to response to public privilege. I will start. First to Chris McGuire. I can see which committee she has just volunteered for next year. And beyond that, I want to thank John Yashevitz for coming and speaking tonight, and for the many officers of the Lower Merion Police Department who are here tonight joining us. It is good to see everyone here. I'm especially happy that you are here because it gives me the opportunity to speak to you directly. And first, let me express our appreciation for the amazing job that LMPD does. Your FOP president spoke eloquently about all that you do, but this board does not need to be reminded. Your dedication and bravery in support of the residents and businesses in Lower Merion is unparalleled. And your ambition to always be the best is laudable. We have asked you to do a lot, to continue to deliver best-in-class policing despite significantly depleted numbers. You have delivered, rising to the occasion with no compromise of public safety, but we recognize it takes a toll and is unsustainable. That is why we have moved aggressively to hire more police officers. Second, I want to be clear about something, that is we as a board are not and have not been talking about any adjustments to the authorized complement of 136 officers. That is a policy position of the board that is not under consideration tonight, nor was it under consideration 2 weeks ago. Rather, one of the things that we do at budget time is discuss whether the accounting assumptions in our budget forecast accurately reflect the reality of what we can deliver. Those forecasts may matter for the bond rating agencies, but as our township manager said 2 weeks ago on December 3rd, they do not affect at all what we actually do and who we actually employ. Having said that, I recognize that such nuances are not necessarily clear. So I want to leave you with one more thought, and that is here, as in all things, what people do is much more revealing than what they say. And if you look at what this board has done alongside with Lower Merion Police Department, I think it speaks volumes. As mentioned earlier, we have aggressively worked to replenish the ranks of LMPD by offering signing bonuses, expanding the pool of who can be hired, and by moving quickly to make offers to suitable candidates rather than waiting for a new fiscal year. The standard for employment in LMPD is extremely high. Something like only 2% of those who signed up to take the most recent civil service exam ended up getting a job offer. That means hiring is slower than one would like, but we take seriously, as you do, that those standards cannot be compromised. Another example is how this board left no stone unturned in searching for the best possible leadership for LMPD, eventually selecting Superintendent Block. Notably, we have done these things with a perhaps unprecedented degree of collaboration between the township and you. The officers of LMPD participated in every stage of the superintendent search, from the focus groups that identified the characteristics we were looking for in the superintendent to the interviews. Your feedback and suggestions were incorporated into our signing bonuses for new recruits and our decision to relax the college credit requirement to be hired to be an officer. These are the actions of a board and a township that value and appreciate their police force and who genuinely listen to their good ideas. I recognize that you are here tonight in part because you are proud of the work that you do. Please know that we too are proud of your work, and we thank you very much for your service. Thank you. Any of my fellow commissioners wish to respond to public comment? Commissioner Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all those who made comments. I just want to make 2 brief comments. Number one, I would like to thank the President of FOP for the comments, particularly about how there's been this ongoing collaboration between the FOP and the leadership of Superintendent Block, and also complimenting what President Sinai just said. I think it's important for us to continue that work, particularly around the advocacy of community policing and making sure that the residents are also interconnected. I also like to say that now that I'm off the board, I'm looking to, when I get off the board, I'm looking to be a licensed instructor on tasering. So I'm hoping that I can do instruction on how to taser and that. So if there are any openings, let me know. For judge, I again, for you, I want to say that you have a commitment for me off the board to be a volunteer, to be for this work. I think it's important work. Because I think that it is an epidemic that we need to discuss more about, And if we don't address it, it's going to have a domino effect, and the domino effect on our community, which we have our police here, it's going to impact them because that's going to require them to address these issues. So if we are proactively as a community, then we keep not only our residents safe, our police safe, our community safe. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevenson. Anyone else wish to take advantage of respond to public privilege? Commissioner Zoff.
Thank you. I learned tonight that John McMahon is a district justice-elect, I believe. So congratulations on that election. There are 3 DJs that serve Lower Merion Township, and so we look forward to your good work in our community. And it's quite fortunate that a large contingent from LMPD are here tonight because they will be interacting with you. And to the members of the police department, you are always welcome to our open meetings, and we value so much our relationship, as so well said by both our president and your president. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner Zoff. Anyone else wish to respond to public privilege? Okay, seeing none, we're going to turn on to, thank you everyone who spoke. We're going to turn on to public comment. This is the section of our meeting where members of the public may address the board on any agenda items. The comment on the tobacco retailer and lot occupation zoning amendments and the freestanding ground and monument sign zoning amendments should be held until the public hearings on those topics. Comments on all other agenda items should be made now. So, same as before, please come forward to this podium. We're going to ask that you limit it to 3 minutes. The beeper will go off, and state your name and where in the township you live or what organization you represent before beginning your comments.
Hey, y'all, Micah Sneed from Ardmore. I'll save my compliments for Commissioner Stevenson when he comes back, but Commissioner Kramer, thank you so much for all your leadership, and I hope you remain an excellent representative both of and for Ardmore. So really appreciate you, and anytime you had to spend talking me off of a ledge or talking me off from storming the gates, I really appreciate it. Commissioner Grimes, and not to play favorites or anything, but just 3 of you. But Commissioner Grimes, who's not here? Wow, so I can say anything. I thought, and I've mostly paid attention to building and planning committee meetings, and I have found Commissioner Grimes to be a real professional in how he conducts those meetings. I'm glad to hear he's gotten some feedback on the timing of them and keeping them a little bit shorter. If we had our spouses in the meetings with us, maybe we'd move even faster on some of these issues. But thanks to Commissioner Grimes for that. And last but not least, my cousin from South Carolina, Commissioner Stevenson, soon to be back to Dr. Stevenson, proud farmer of the Low Country. Thank you so much for your 8 years. It's really been a pleasure for me, and I think for the community, if not for you. But it's been a real, I think, a warning. Like, it looks easy, like just come to meetings. And then when you get to know the folks who come to the meetings, that this is probably the easiest part of their job and the least amount of time that they spend. I was told by a police officer during Commissioner Stevenson's term that they were not able to patrol our neighborhood in response to complaints. And if I didn't like it, I should take it up with my township commissioner. And I took it up with my township commissioner, despite a lack of sobriety and it being a Friday night, because I was really upset and really angry that if I could be treated like that, how would other people in our community be treated? And Commissioner Stevenson listened to me for at least a good 20 minutes before he got a chance to get a word in, and he really helped me handle a personal but also like a relationship issue with the township and with the police department. So I will always be appreciative of him standing up for folks. I just wanted to, in the 40 seconds, talk about housing needs assessment and action plan. I really appreciate staff time and the board's time on learning more and more. I hate that we're losing 5 members of the board who have learned so much in the last 4 and 8 years and longer about our housing needs. I just wanted to point out that this is not an affordable housing needs assessment. It is a housing needs. We all need some level of affordable housing. The report highlights several strategies and strengths in the township that we should celebrate, specifically that this is a highly desirable township. and only for good reasons as far as I can tell. I don't think there's any negatives around that. We are already doing so much, including actions that you will take tonight around CDBG, around affordable housing incentives. Please keep going. Please take this report, learn it, and make it required reading for the new commissioners who are coming in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Alec Hirsch, Ardmore Initiative. I'd like to begin my remarks by just extending a debt of gratitude to the 5 departing commissioners, especially those from here in Ardmore, Commissioner Stevenson and Commissioner Kramer, though I've only been working with you both for a brief period of time, only 6-7 months. I can already tell that you will be deeply, deeply missed in our community, and I want to thank you for the work that you've put in. And Commissioner Stevenson, I'm just learning now that you are from the Low Country, so we'll have to swap stories after you depart the board. So I'm here tonight primarily because at last night's meeting of the Board of Directors for the Ardmore Initiative, a resolution was passed recommending the proposed changes to the municipal parking meters here in Ardmore. So I'm here tonight to read that resolution, but before I do, I feel a sense of obligations just to report to you all some feedback I've gotten from community business owners, some concerns they have for those. So I just want to read those briefly now before getting into that resolution. Several business owners have expressed with me their fears that higher rates could mean shoppers going elsewhere where parking may be lower. They've also reiterated the request for employee-specific parking permits, which would allow for employees to park for up to 8 hours without having to refeed their parking meters, especially in the Cricket Avenue garage. Finally, they reiterated with me a desire for additional lighting, signage, and police presence at the Cricket Avenue garage, especially at night. So with that, I will now read the resolution as passed by our board yesterday evening. Be it resolved that the Ardmore Business District Authority of Montgomery County recommends amendments to the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 145 thereof, to increase parking meter rates in municipal lots, highway parking meter zones, and off-highway parking meter zones as proposed by township staff for consideration by the Lower Merion Township Board of Commissioners. Be it further resolved that the Ardmore Business District Authority Board of Directors supports the aforementioned amendments under the belief that they will positively impact driver behavior, mitigate improper use of hourly parking areas, support parking space turnover, and more closely abide by industry standards for pricing. The Ardmore Business District Authority believes that the amendments to the Code of the Township of Lower Merion are, as proposed, are fair and commensurate with comparable communities throughout the region. And then before I wrap up my remarks for the evening, I just also wanted to share that I understand that township staff and commissioners are also discussing an interest in extending park meter service from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. In Ardmore and in Bryn Mawr. Though this is not part of the ordinance this evening, the AI Board eagerly looks forward to looking into and discussing this proposal in the new year. So thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to take advantage of public comment?
Evening, Craig Allender, Merion Station. 3 decades, 3 daughters, 2 dogs, 2 cats, but only 1 wife. I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but I did do my own research. I submitted 2 township right-to-know requests, one for 2025 shade tree removals and one for plantings. The data show that when a large tree is defined as a mature height of 50 or more than 90% of the removed trees are large, but fewer than half of the planted trees are large. So about half the time, when a majestic 70-foot oak, sycamore, or maple is removed, it's replaced by a beautiful but small 25-foot redbud, cherry, or dogwood. Bartlett's tree canopy plan suggests that when a large tree is removed, it should be replaced by a large tree. But when this is impractical, a large tree needs 5 small substitution trees to maintain canopy. With this council, the number of plantings needed to preserve street tree cover is roughly 550. to retain right-of-way tree canopy in addition to the 200 trees already being planted, an additional 350 are essential. And to grow canopy, the number needs to be even higher. Unfortunately, the 2026 proposed shade tree division budget provides for only 200 street trees, identical to prior years, ensuring continued canopy decline. It doesn't have to be this way. Staff has said that homeowners do not want trees, but that's simply not true. If there's funding for 600 trees, I guarantee that I'll secure 600 applications for shade trees. If 1,000, I'll get 1,000. I'll even do it in areas that have low tree cover, such as West Ardmore and Bala, or areas that have lost significant canopy, such as Belmont Hills and Marion Station. The door hanger initiative can be revived at any time. Recall that the plan was to distribute door hangers to property owners, informing of the township's right-of-way tree offerings and the method by which to apply. The sustainability manager has the proof designed and ready for printing. There are 14 volunteers standing by, eager to circulate the hangers. If the township purchases the trees, my team will literally and figuratively unearth the planting sites. At the next board meeting, I'll disclose how all this can be done at 1/4 the current cost. I will continue to act with the surety that success is inevitable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to take advantage of public comment? Okay, seeing none, do any of my colleagues wish to respond to public comment?
I just want to quickly
Commissioner Stevenson.
Recognize Mr. Sneed for his comments and thank him for them, but also recognize an important part of this process in which he represented, and that is a member of a leadership in the civic. Our civics are an important part of our functions on this board, so thank you for your leadership and thank those who in the other civics as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevenson. Vice President Kramer.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank Mr. Sneed for his comments, and now that I'll be on the other side of the dais, maybe you and I can partner up to advocate as residents for the Housing Action Plan. I'm also very excited about it. It's key. It's a national issue, it's a regional issue, and it's a Lower Merion issue. So we'll need all hands on deck. And I also would just like to thank Mr. Hirsch, who is not here, for his fine and capable leadership at the Ardmore Initiative. I'm confident that good things are coming Ardmore's way under his leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Kramer. Last call for anyone else to respond to public comment. As always, thank you to everyone who spoke. We're now moving on to the consent calendar, which is on pages 4 to 16 of your packet. Does anyone wish to remove anything from consent? Seeing none, I'm going to move that we approve the consent calendar as presented. As presented, and including the item for the Finance Committee meeting held earlier this evening. I believe that has a roll call vote.
For the adoption of the consent calendar, Mr. Bernheim. Aye. Mr. Churchill.
Aye.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Ms. Epstein.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Aye.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer. Dr. Rossman.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Woodring.
Yes.
Mr. Zello.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The consent calendar is duly adopted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're now on to the Finance Committee. Page 17 of your packet is rejection of bids for the Union Fire renovations. So I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to move that we approve rejection of all bids for Union Fire renovations received on Thursday, November 13th, 2025 at 11 a.m. Prevailing time as recommended by the Finance Committee. The total construction cost of $3,181,141 is approximately $1 million over the estimated construction budget. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Bernheim. Any questions for staff or comments by my fellow commissioners? All right, seeing none, Madam Secretary, vote.
You don't need a roll call for that.
Oh, we don't, sorry. says roll call vote on the script you wrote for me.
Cutting and pasting.
But I take responsibility. I should have known. It was just racing.
Cutting and pasting.
I think people earlier tonight, the outgoing commissioners, were singing your praises. But if they only knew. Okay. It's not Jody who makes us look good. We make Jody look good. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, Madam Secretary, that carries 13-1. We are now on to an adoption of ordinance for 2025 deficiencies on page 28 of your packet. So here's the ordinance. It's an ordinance of the Township of Lower Merion to amend ordinance number 4302, adopted December 18th, 2024, making a change in certain appropriations, some of which have proven to be larger than needed and some to be insufficient, in authorizing the proper township officers to make the required transfers from and to appropriations heretofore made of receipts not heretofore estimated or from unappropriated fund balances. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held November 19th, 2025, and duly advertised in the December 7th, 2025 edition of the Mainline Times and Suburban. So in English, this is just us truing up everything from last year. So I'm going to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 4324. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Zeloff. Any questions for staff or comments from my fellow commissioners? Seeing none, is this a roll call vote? Okay. Madam Secretary.
For the adoption of ordinance 4324, Mr. Bernheim.
I heretofore approve.
Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Ms. Epstein. Yes. Mr. Gabbard.
Aye.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Dr. Rossman. Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Whalen.
Aye.
Mr. Woodring.
Yes.
Mr. Zellow.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. So we're now on to the 2026 tax levy and appropriations on page 30 of your packet. And so I'm going to start by making a motion. I'm going to read the ordinance first. The ordinance of the Township of Lower Merion, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, imposing a levy for general revenue purposes on all taxable real estate in the township in the amount of 4.886 mils on each $1 of assessed valuation, adopting an annual budget and appropriating specific sums estimated to be required for the purposes of municipal government for the 2026 fiscal year and approving the 2026 to 2031 capital improvement program. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held November 19th, 2025, and duly advertised in the December 7th, 2025 edition of the Mainline Times and Suburban. So I'm going to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 4325. And do I have a second? Thank you, Vice President Kramer. So this is the big issue for the evening. It is the tax increase. I am going to, before turning to questions for staff or board discussion or amendments, I'm going to start a little bit by trying to set the stage. We've gotten a lot of information from the township. And I just want to give a little background, partly for my fellow commissioners, a lot for people who might be watching the meeting, and also explain why I support management's proposed tax increase for 2026. And first, a little bit of background, and that is our tax increases are not high, they are just lumpy. It's a 9.5% proposed tax increase this year. But over the last 4 years, it averages out to be about 3.8% over 4 years. Over the last 15, it's just under 0.25% per year. They're just happening right now. In terms of a resident's total tax bill, the portion of your tax bill that goes from the township has gone from 20% some decades ago to just 10% of your tax bill now, right? We are a smaller portion of what you're paying for, and we are doing more. Indeed, we're a victim of our own success. A 9.5% proposed tax increase, if we were still 20% of your tax bill, would actually only be a 4.75% tax increase, because that's how percentages work, right? We've kept the base really low, and so for a given number of dollars, it looks like a big percentage. So that's where we're at, though. And in part, where we are this year is a consequence of decisions this board has made in prior years. In prior years, this board has decided that residents should keep their money until we need it, and we should not raise taxes until we really need the money. That was not an argument that I voted for, but it was an argument I respected. It is an intellectually coherent and reasonable point of view. And the only reason I disagreed with it was then as now, when the time comes to actually have to raise the taxes, if you put it off till you need it, then you have to raise it by more in that year. And that can be hard to do at that time, as I think we are going to see this year. Right? But we have when it comes time to pay the piper, there's sticker shock. So that's how I think we are where we are. Let me go into like finance wonkiness for just a couple minutes. With our budget, we are trying to accomplish two things, right? One is we've been trying to have an orderly rundown of the surplus in the general fund, right? We've been trying to have it be an orderly rundown because if you deplete your general fund too quickly, the rating agencies freak out. So we want to have it be a regular rundown. But we agreed as a board that we had too much of a surplus in the general fund and we wanted that to get smaller. The second thing we're trying to do is slowing the rate of the rundown, because eventually you run out of surplus, and so you cannot run it down anymore. And it's really hard to turn off that spigot cold turkey, because that requires a really big tax increase when you do that. So what we're trying to do is get the deficit to diminish over time as well. But the two things that we're trying to accomplish. So where do things stand right now? And I've shared something. There's a printout, I think, for my fellow commissioners in color. Adam, if you could do the first slide of the deck. Not sure where I buried mine. There it is. Okay. Okay, I promise I have very few slides. These are just the ones that I find really handy. And so this is a slide of our projected deficit and our actual deficit, right? So the projected deficit's in orange, it's the line. The dotted part on the right is the part that's actually projected. Everything else for next year, everything else has been what was projected in previous years. In a couple of things about it, that projected deficit is just what our budget is. It's what we budget our revenues versus our expenses to be. The blue bars is what actually materializes, like whether we actually have a surplus, that we had more revenues and expenses in a year, or if we had a deficit, which is revenues being less than expenses. So a couple of things to observe, right? The first is that the budgeted deficit line is really not the thing that is of the most focus, right? Because we always outperform our budget except for COVID year, right? We always outperform it. The only question is just how much we outperform it by, right? But we always outperform it. The second is the last 2 years have been a $3 million deficit. That's different than what it looks like in the budget book. These numbers come from Adam. And the reason is that Adam has taken out the one-time transfers to and from the general fund. And so this is truly what our revenues were versus our expenses. It's what our true deficit was. In the last 2 years, we were basically at minus $3 million. And to my eye, next year, we are aiming for another minus $3 million year, right? Because we're kind of the same forecasted deficit, and we'll probably outperform it, if you had to guess, by about the same amount. Okay. So that's just kind of where we stand and where we've been the last couple of years. And so when we think about what goes into a tax increase, what does a tax increase need to do? Like, what are we doing with it? The obvious one is that we need to cover growth in expenses. Our expenses go up, our revenues have to grow to cover it. The second thing that we have to do, though, is that every year we need to, if we want to be above our general fund minimum level, we need to actually increase the size of our general fund. Because the minimum level of our general fund is a percentage of our budget, And if our budget grows every year, that minimum number needs to grow every year. So what we need to do on average is run a surplus. We haven't needed to in recent years because we've had a general fund surplus that we're running down. But going forward, if you need to exceed, let's say 20%, of expenses grow at 4% a year, your general fund balance needs to grow at 4% per year. So we need to run a surplus. So we got to raise taxes to do that as well in a given year. We have to, we have I think some news this year, which is our manager has advised that our target fund balance, ideally should be more than what our policy level has had it at. Right? And we can ask him to speak for it, but in the interest of time, he would advise that it should be somewhere in the 20 to 25% range. That was higher than what we had targeted before. It puts a little more pressure if we're going to try and stay above that to getting there this year. And then the other thing that we need to do, ideally, is whittle away at the actual deficit, not the budgeted one, but the actual one, because we need to slow our rate of decrease in the general fund. And that's the one thing that, to my eye, a 9.5% tax increase is sacrificing this year. We're not going to be whittling that deficit down. We're just going to be dealing with a year with a lot of expense growth. Okay. So here's my warning, right? Here's my concern, and that is what happens in future years if we get close to a minimum acceptable fund balance, whether that's a policy target of 18%, whether that's the manager's range of 20 to 25%. When you get close to that, you have to raise taxes a lot. The reason is you have to stop having a deficit because you can't drop below that, and that requires a big tax increase then. You don't have the buffer to run the general fund down anymore. Okay? As I said before, you have to raise taxes by extra because you have to run a surplus in order to not fall below your general fund minimum. You have to cover that year's expense growth, okay? And you will be really scared about missing your target because the consequences of being too low is going to be very high, right? Because you're like, then the rating agencies are going to get nervous with us. And so you will be conservative in raise your taxes by extra. It's a line we want to stay away from, I think, because it sort of forces you into the corner. So what makes this hard? If you could just go to the second slide, Adam. And I promise you guys, I don't have very much left. This is something that we looked at last year. This is our dilemma in a nutshell. This is the sources of half of our revenues. Half of our revenues comes from levying property taxes on people's properties. That is highly predictable. Properties generally don't get reappraised. Some of them get appraised downwards. That was a problem for us last year, but that's predictable. What's on here is the less predictable stuff. The bottom is transfer taxes. Okay? It's somewhat unpredictable, but it's the movement's not a big dollar amount. The top green line is everything that's not transfer taxes and business privilege tax, and that has some volatility. But the real volatility is the red line, and that is the business privilege tax. Anything that is solid is stuff that has happened in the past. Anything that's a dotted line is Adam's forecast. The bottom forecast, the only forecast that has a top and the bottom are the red line and the green lines. The bottom forecast is the baseline estimate that corresponds to the baseline projection. And the top line is Adam's optimistic forecast that we'll get to in a moment, but that was in his budget book, and we'll show you that. Okay? The range between those is about $3 million next year, depending on how you would forecast the business privilege tax. So there's a few things about this, right? The first is like that volatility, the zigzags are $5 million swings, right? A $5 million swing the wrong way blows up your budget, blows up your general fund balance, and is a real problem. The second is like it's hard to know what's going to happen. Commissioner Zeloff last year, when we were deciding what the tax rate should be this year, made the observation that you get a big run up in every other year and a decline in the other, in the down years. Well, last year was the run up year, right? Like I didn't subscribe to that logic then. I probably don't subscribe to it now. But like the baseline forecast assumes that next year is not a downward spike, right? It assumes that we kind of like hold somewhere around average. If we drop downwards, we're going to be $3 million under that. Okay? If we go upwards, then we'll be $3 million above that. But that is where we're at, right? It is a very difficult thing to predict. So if we go to slide 3. So this was in the budget book, and people didn't pay much attention to it. I just kind of, we kind of rejiggered this. So instead of dollars on the left-hand side, the left-hand side is the general fund balance percentage. That makes it a little easier to read. And what we have here are lines that are forecasting our balance next year and then going forward. Now, I just have this here to highlight to the board, as we discuss this, what the consequences are that we're looking at. And so the 3 lines, okay, the bottom line, the orange line, corresponds to Adam's baseline forecast that I already told you that I think we always outperform. Okay? So by how much? The green line, okay, the middle one that he calls BPT trend line, corresponds to basically being a $3 million deficit next year, right? So that basically corresponds to like how we did the same performance as we had the last 2 years. That's what that corresponds to. And then projects going forward, this is all Adam's forecast of expenses and revenues. The blue line corresponds to that very top business privilege tax line that I showed you was the optimistic case, okay? Now, this differs from your budget book in the following sense. The budget book had the 2026 tax increase being 9.5% and everything else being 0. Here, what we've just done is we've said, suppose the tax increases in 27 were 7%, 28 were 7%, 29 were 5%. Not because we are proposing those, but because I just want to give you a sense of like what a future can look like. These are just kind of placeholder tax increases. In that, the green line, like, in any case, next year, the green line, anything but the blue line, is kind of in Ernie's 20 to 25% range. The blue line's at the top of it. After that, we start working our way through that unless we have blue line performance and the tax increases that are listed here. Okay? That's where we're at. So we are facing a future of needing to raise revenue given the anticipated expenses. Full stop, even with a 9.5% tax increase, unless we are fortunate in having revenue outperformance. Okay? And even if we have revenue outperformance, we still need this 9.5, 7, 7, 5, right? So you need revenue outperformance and the tax increase. That's where we're at. Why? Expenses went up a lot this year. They'll probably revert next year. We have to claw back some of the deficit, and our general fund target keeps getting bigger. And we're now, if we follow Ernie's advice, aiming for this 20 to 25% range instead of a 12 to 16% or 18% range. So with that, I guess my last thought is, we know reality is going to be different than any of these forecasts. One thing we know is that none of these are going to materialize exactly. So I view this as with the business privilege tax, to a degree, we're rolling the fiscal dice. Good numbers come up with lots of revenue, bad numbers come up with low revenue. When this board thinks about where we want to peg what our deficit's going to be going forward and what our fund balance is going forward, effectively what you're doing is you're saying, like how good of a dice roll do we need to be okay, right? If we raise taxes more, then we're insulated against some less good fiscal years. If we raise taxes by less, then we need to outperform this. Okay, so thank you for that. The way I see it is that I'm worried about getting into a situation where we are hard up against this 20% line, and then we are going to be boxed into having to do a big tax increase really, really fast, and not have the luxury to spread out over time, which is what we've been trying to do. And so I support the 9.5% tax increase. So with that, I have a sneaking suspicion a fellow commissioner would like to make an amendment, and for expediency, I will call on Commissioner Courtney.
Thank you, President. I think I just won Price is Right. Lowest without going over. All right, anyway. What I propose is to reduce the tax increase from 9.5% to 6.5%, replicating the action we took last year. Should our projections prove accurate, the effect of this reduction would be that we would need to use an additional $1 million of general fund balance to cover the deficit, and that would bring our fund balance down to 20.2% of operating expenses, which is still above our stated policy goal of 15 to 18. As President Sinai mentioned at this time last year, we started a conversation about whether that policy needs to be adjusted, and I encourage us to tackle that problem in the coming year as a Finance Committee priority. We often refer to the general fund balance as our rainy day fund, and I would argue that the cost increases we have seen this year, combined with our ongoing structural deficit, constitute a rainy day. This year we've seen almost 20% increase in health insurance costs, negatively reassessed values of some of the township's commercial properties, and just general cost increases due to inflation. All of those factors are outside of our direct control, and we need to address them through increased revenue. Last year, we went above the staff recommended tax increase to try to reduce future increases. This year, I'm asking us to use our general fund balance to buy additional time for the increase in revenues from these tax increases. What I'm proposing is that we use excess general fund balance to smooth the rate of the increase over time. This action is not a long-term solution, and it is not sustainable. Even if we leave our fund balance policy unchanged, we would likely only be able to do this one more time. The long-term solution is to continue to increase revenue through property tax increase to narrow the gap between our expenses and revenues, as you see proposed on the chart on the screen. Even if we have one-time windfalls, good years for business tax revenue that narrow the gap for a single year, we need to continue to increase the tax rate to make up for 13 years of cost increases without a tax increase. Those years of no tax increase have proven to be a mistake, given that each year we presented with a structural deficit and a looming cliff. By holding out on increases as long as we did, we have painted ourselves into a corner. I asked our CFO to create a model of the past 15 years of revenue and expenses, holding all things constant except for the tax rate. I admit this is somewhat artificial. Hindsight is 20/20, but if we had even done just a 0.2% tax increase in each of those years, we would currently project a higher fund balance at a lower millage rate. More money in the bank, lower tax rate. Now, I've heard this argument that we should leave taxpayer money in our residents' pockets as long as possible. I've even made a version of that argument when discussing our excess fund balance. However, I believe our constituents would prefer an expectation of small annual increase versus surprise jumps. Now, there is a potential downside of adverse impact to our credit rating when we next go to borrow money. That would increase the cost of borrowing, increase the amount of our budget that gets put toward debt service. At the moment, I'm willing to take that risk. One, because any downgrade would be temporary if we commit ourselves to a path of increased revenue through consistent, moderate property tax increase. And two, borrowing money is already a way of smoothing out increased expenses over the course of 20 years. And this would be consistent with my desire to reduce the immediate burden of the tax increase. Look at that chart. There is a high likelihood that we will have this same conversation again next year, and there is potential that the recommended increase will be even higher. But in this moment, we have an opportunity to buy some time to try to ease the burden of this correction. And with that, I move that we amend the motion on the floor to a 6.5% tax increase. And if I've done my math right, hopefully someone will check me, that would be 4.752 mils.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, thank you, Commissioner Epstein. Any commissioner comments on the motion? Commissioner Bernheim.
Yeah, certainly, and I do this in part to follow through with some of your recommendations to members of the board that we try to condense our discussions about millage increase at one time. Currently what's on the floor is the 6.5, dropping it down to 6.5, which I will support. But there are a couple comments I'd like to make before I get into some of the substance. When I think that universally on this board that if there's the opportunity to limit tax increases without sacrificing our services and without impairing our AAA bond rating, that would be a common goal. And tied to that is recognizing points which you raised, President Sinai, some of which I'll try to address, as to dealing with the deficit that we have and how we deal with it, going forward. I think that we also need to be cognizant, not that I believe any of us are unaware, of what's going on around us, both locally and a little bit beyond just our borders. Locally, the county is about to increase taxes at 4% for our residents. The school is going to increase at least 3.5%, and members of the committee that met with the school board, we were informed of that. And we just increased the solid waste fee 5%. Tied to that is what's going on in the world economy, and notwithstanding some people who like to stand before signs and say that prices are going down and wages are going up, just standing before a sign doesn't make that reality, because that's not what's occurring. Unemployment rates, which I heard on the radio this morning, are going up, and while there's a hope that interest rates will go down, that may help the housing market, which I'll come back to, there still is the term an affordability crisis that's going on for many members throughout the country and many members of our community. So I bring up both the micro and macro aspect of that to state that this board, where it has an opportunity to evaluate what we are doing for real estate taxes for our residents and recognizing what's occurring around us locally and nationally, if we can do something that does not sacrifice at all the quality of our services or a AAA bond rating, that we have an obligation to try. And I believe that we can accomplish those goals. Before getting into some of the details, there's just one other aspect I really want to make clear, that in preparing a budget, there's a combination of things that go about it. There is data that we are provided that drives a lot of the analysis, some of which has been relied upon in the recent presentation. There are projections of anticipated events, incomes, and expenses, and good faith policy decisions which are made that drive some of those. In other words, part of this is art and part of this is science. And there's no litmus test that we can have and that's going to come forward and say, this is exactly what the future will provide so that you can prepare a budget. It's all based upon good faith evaluations and considerations, which are then debated here and now. That's been what we have done. That's what this board does. Somebody talked about earlier when we were recognizing our departing commissioners about the democracy that we have and the manner in which this board exemplifies itself in doing that. And year after year, we have these good faith debates. We may agree, we may disagree, we try not to be disagreeable, but that's what the process is. So following that process, I think there are a couple things that we can take into consideration. Earlier this evening, we learned, because of our manager and our assistant manager and others' diligence, we've been able to change insurances so that we're going to have, I think it's $103,000 savings just by virtue of doing that. That gives us $103,000. We also are aware that there's some litigation involving Centennial Road, which we've been able to resolve, where we're going to receive another $100,000. For each point of the increase of be it 9.5, 6.5, that's about $336,000 roughly that we're talking about. Those two items alone get us to about 2/3 of a point that we have out of the gate for which we can make an adjustment. When we talk about, for example, the transfer taxes, we can't predict that with certainty. The number of homes that are going to be sold, the value of those homes that are going to be sold. People take a look at what the market is. We've received a projection. There are those that I think that could argue very forcefully that was a bit conservative. Homes that go on the residential market in our community sell for over asking price and frequently without even being placed on multiple listings. And while I may have some comfort that we will outperform the projections of those transfer tax revenue, that's not the predicate upon which I rest when I state that I would support lowering the increase from 9.5. The major driver there is our fund balance. And the major concern that we have there in connection with the fund balance is how will that impact our AAA bond rating. Keep in mind that when the various rating agencies take a look at Lower Merion, the fund balance is not the only thing they look at. You can see some of the scorecards that they have that are publicly available. Moody's, for example, I forget if it's 10 or 20% that they put on some type of fund balance. But the major thing they look at, and that which is reported in each time that we've received a AAA bond rating, is who we are, the strength of our financial community. In order to understand the bond ratings, think of applying for a residential mortgage. The lender is going to want to know several things. What's the value of the home for which I'm receiving collateral security? What's the ability of the borrower to pay? And in the bond rating things, that creditworthiness concept is exactly what someone's looking at. When they look at fund balance, the concept is, what if the township or the municipality, for some reason or another, does not have additional revenue coming in? Do they have enough in their coffers to handle 2, maybe 3 months max without additional revenue? What is that safety net that's out there? Thus, they have the fund balance barriers that are there. We have been told by our township manager, and accurately so, that there's certain townships that have a 40% fund balance in order to be able to get a AAA bond rating. Those municipalities, however, don't have the same financial strength that we do. And I did a lot of research as to what is out there on the internet, plugging in municipalities and townships throughout the country that may be comparable to ours, Scarsdale, Shaker Heights, a whole bunch of them that are on the upper end. And the only consistency that I could find was inconsistency. Because some of those townships may have an earned income tax that we don't have. Some may have different philosophies of the manner in which they handle their fund balance, their general fund, and everything else. So it was really hard to find something specific to say, aha, this is exactly what takes place universally throughout the country, so that we could rest upon a specific test. There is none that's out there. It is both that art and science that is there. However, here's another fact for us to consider. We heard earlier that it is unlikely that we will go to the bond market until maybe 2027 or maybe late 2026. And at that point in time, when the bond rating agencies are taking a look at Lower Merion, they're going to look at the last audited statement, which will be 2025. It won't be what's occurring here tonight at 2026. That will be the driver as to what any evaluation may be. At that point in time, we have now almost a year of experience as to what is going on and what projections that we have. We have historically, as pointed out, exceeded our budget anticipations. I do not believe for a moment that is because we promise low because we think that we're going to deliver high. Our budgeting process has received awards year after year, I think 30 consecutive years of that nature, of the manner in which we do things. But the fact is, we continue to perform better than what we anticipate. Sometimes it is unanticipated revenue, a developer who's had to pay us in advance of what we had thought before, or we settle some litigation that's out there. My confidence that we will continue to outperform is not predicated upon those one-off situations that we've been fortunate to have year after year, but we have been very conservative in the manner in which we handle our finances, and we collect our taxes at a rate unlike many other municipalities, and the income that we will have coming forth are not going to put us into a situation of any type of jeopardy. If we lower the fund balance at what is being suggested here by Commissioner Courtney down to 6.5%, we will be at 20.2% of our expenditures. We are over that 20% mark, which has been a benchmark that many of the other municipalities, and one that we've heard here, and one which exceeds our 15 to 18% policy that we have in effect. If we, at that point, if we're talking, as Commissioner Courtney stated, $1 million, all right? If someone's analyzing Lower Merion, $1 million is not going to be that which they are going to say that this township is going to have some inability of raising, if it had to, in some form of emergency, that's going to impact our bond rating, which, as I said before, probably not going to be an analysis until 2027. If corrections are needed, we could do it, and would be predicated, if it's in 2026, on 2025. So I have confidence that we would be able to ease the pain of some of our residents by having a lower tax increase here, again, without sacrificing any services whatsoever, and without having the potential of impairing our bond rating, and recognizing, yes, we will probably be looking at another tax increase in the following year. On the years that we had no tax increase, on several of them, and as they came from our manager as a recommendation, on several of them I said, be prepared, this is probably the last time that we are going to do that. And it wasn't. What came forward is that we outperformed, and we were able to proceed and not sacrifice services and maintain that AAA bond rating. So I think it's incumbent upon us to go ahead and go below that 9.5, and on the floor right now is 6.5%, and I think that's something that we can endorse. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners wish to comment? Commissioner Gillett-Kramer.
Apologies to Commissioner Epstein. I do have comments tonight because this is a subject I feel very strongly about. I do not support the motion to lower the real estate tax increase from the advertised 9.5% for 2026. That tax increase was recommended by our professional staff in part due to the $2 million increase in medical insurance costs and the hiring of more police officers. For the median home assessment in the township, a 9.5% tax increase would be an additional $122, or about $10 a month. And reducing it to 6.5% would mean a savings for our average homeowner of about $38.50 in 2026, or about $3.21 a month. I don't think it's worth taking some of the risks that are being proposed to save our residents $3.21 a month. For 13 years until last year, the township did not raise real estate taxes, even though the structural deficit between our income and expenses grew. According to our finance director, that equated to a 32% tax cut for our residents when inflation was considered. The record no increase streak was accomplished in part by eliminating staff positions, using receipt of one-time money to fill budget gaps, deferring capital projects, using our reserves, and not fully funding our equipment fund. In my opinion, the township has been too dependent on intermittent, strong business privilege tax years or tax settlements in order to close budget gaps in some years. Our business income tax is too variable to be reliably counted on to remain at high levels, as the last 2 years have demonstrated. In the coming years, we are going to need to fully fund our equipment fund instead of funding it at 50 or 65% of our needs. We will no longer be able to rely on ARP money for long-deferred capital projects or ARP interest to reduce our capital borrowing needs. We won't be able to supplement our solid waste fund with $900,000 of unrestricted ARP interest like we're doing this year. While none of us likes such a large increase in 1 year, I support the 9.5% increase because I believe it is the fiscally responsible approach. Our excellent township staff is already very lean, and I don't favor curtailing services or deferring needed projects. Without this substantial advertised increase, we may very well put the township's double AAA bond rating at risk, which would cost the township millions of dollars over time, and also force higher real estate tax increases to pay the increased debt service. We've been told that the township's financial advisor has counseled that we should not let our reserves fall below 25% of the annual budget. And Moody's has suggested that allowing our reserves to fall below 30% of revenue could result in a downgrading of our credit rating. Our reserve policy, which was adopted over 10 years ago, is outdated and inappropriate for current conditions. In my opinion, our policy should have been updated this year before we considered the amount of a property tax increase this year. I am unwilling to ignore the advice of and substitute my non-professional judgment for that of our financial advisor and our excellent finance director about how best to protect our double AAA rating. Kicking the can down the road by lowering the tax increase this year, as prior boards did for 13 years by not having any tax increase at all, will not serve our constituents well in the long run. Lowering a tax increase now may lead to deferral of projects like improvements to traffic and pedestrian safety and creating sustainability infrastructure. To manage budget deficits, it may incentivize not filling or leaving positions vacant for long periods. That would include police officers, when we are finally having success in hiring more officers. This board resoundingly rejected that idea 2 weeks ago and should do so again. A lower tax increase will also leave less money available to implement new initiatives to improve the township and respond to any unexpected events in 2026. It likely will lead to the need for an even higher tax increase next year. We should not burden the township residents and the future boards in this way. In the past, I've advocated for and voted for smaller annual increases to avoid a year like this. And I hope that in the future, the Board of Commissioners will do what is needed to close the structural gap between the township's income and expenses and have regular, smaller increases to address increasing costs and new initiatives. While I agree with Commissioner Courtney's ultimate goal, I cannot support this amendment.
Thank you. Commissioner Grimes.
Thank you. So I have some questions for Adam and Bernie, if to the extent he's not able to fully answer. So we've heard two perspectives tonight, and I believe everybody wants to do the responsible thing. So the questions, to the extent you're able to answer, if the board were to agree to approve a 6.5% increase, as Commissioner Courtney has said, are we putting our bond rating at risk?
So it's hard to say ultimately what Moody's decides when they go into their black box of their committee. If budget deficits come to fruition, it makes the credit agency calls harder when we go to bond issuance. That's all I can say. Our financial advisor did provide us some guidance on that area and suggested that, towards the 25% range is where they are recommending most go towards, in given where the credit rating agencies are. As Commissioner Bernheim spoke to before, the credit agencies do put a high weight on the financial health of the township and the large tax base. That's routinely credited why they notch us up, in these very methodological scorecards. We don't come out AAA, we come out the next one down, and they can notch you up or down based on their deliberations, and they see the professional management of the staff and those, how we grade out compared to our peers financially. The resident financial health always sways them. However, they do put certain metrics. They do bring up the financials of the township.
If I may, and I don't mean to, but I'm sure, just to cut it short. So it's uncertain. That's right?
Certainly uncertain. And I think, no one's going to, let's say worst case scenario, a matter would come up that that Moody's might say, we're concerned. They would probably, worst case put a negative outlook first before they ever put a AAA. But I don't, in 1 year, in 26, are you asking me if they're going to do that? I highly doubt that in 26.
Okay.
Regardless of these tax increase thresholds, it's more, when you talk about fund balance, it's about looking into the long term and making sure that we're, long-term financially healthy in their eyes.
So let me just ask one or two other things. If we lower the tax to 6.5%, is the township going to be not hiring employees we otherwise want to hire this year?
No.
Okay, what about capital projects? Are there capital projects that we want to pursue that we aren't going to pursue because it's a 6.5% increase?
No, the capital improvement program is the capital improvement program, and unless you change that, then the course wouldn't change.
Okay. I'm interested to hear other discussion, but, I think there's obviously different philosophies about this. I believe that this is residents' money, that the township should put into our bank accounts if the money is needed. I think that we've heard different opinions about what is needed or not. And also, and look, it's not like we aren't going to have a substantial reserve, whatever we decide tonight. But I also think that we should consider that if we have more reserves that we don't need, we are taking money from people who may not live in the township next in 2 or 3 years and that sort of thing. And we're taking money from people today to help people in a few years. And that's not a wrong thing. But to me, the matter is what's the responsible cushion for us? And notwithstanding some of what we've heard tonight, I think it's there's very much doubt as to whether if we agree to a lower increase, that the township isn't going to run very well as it has in past years. And let me just say, because I'm sure everyone wants to hear me drone on, even though it's the last time I'm probably going to do it, this board makes decisions every year based on what is fiscally responsible. And we've done that my whole time on the board, and I think we will do that tonight as well, whatever we do. But the board, I don't believe, has ever approved more than we need, and I don't know that we should change that practice tonight. So thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Gavin.
Thank you. This is obviously a really hard decision. I don't think I can support a 6.5% tax increase, but I don't think 9.5 is right either. I think it's somewhere in between. What that right number is, it's certainly up for debate. For years, we always said at budget time that we were proud that we maintained service without increasing taxes. And I always thought that was the wrong standard. I didn't think maintaining services was the right way to go. I think we should always be growing. We should always be offering more amenities, more services to our residents. But Commissioner Sinai said, or President Sinai said something before the word lumpy. And I'm thinking about it not just from a tax standpoint, which is what we're talking about tonight and what we're voting on tonight, but I think we've been very lumpy in how we've looked at the expense side, not the revenue side, not the tax side. And I think it's really important to think about that, not necessarily for tonight, but for the future. And to me, we did not make a mistake not raising taxes for all those years. We had a huge balance. And if we raised taxes, the balance would have, one of two things would have happened. It would have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, or we would have said, wow, look at this huge balance. Let's hire more people. Let's spend more. Let's go crazy. And I think for the last couple of years, we did do that, and we hired too many people too quickly. So I think we fell out of balance kind of on both sides over the past decade, 12 years, whatever it might be. First in, saying let's maintain services rather than increasing them, where we should have been slightly increasing services, and then seeing a big budget and a big balance, saying, oh, let's spend all this money and hire too many people too quickly. So I think in the future we need to balance that out, and I think it's really important that we continually raise services, we raise the bar, we keep this the most amazing township, the most, just wonderful and better for the residents, but we don't do it in a way that's inappropriate or not responsible. I think tonight where I am is somewhere in the 8% tax increase. I think it's important, as President Sinai said, to maintain a bit of a buffer. I think 9.5%, as Commissioner Grimes said, is probably robbing from the future or robbing from today to pay for the future, or vice versa, whichever way it is. But I think it's somewhere in between, and I think it's important that we have that balance. So I can't support the 6.5%, but if an amendment comes up for 8.5%, I will certainly support that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gavin. Anyone else wish to comment on this? Yeah, Commissioner Churchill.
Yes, I'd just like to make a couple of comments addressing something the commissioners have said about we're saving $150,000 in our insurance, and we're saving additional money with settlement with Centennial Road. We may be saving $100,000 in Centennial Road, but I believe it cost us over $300,000. So I don't look upon that as a positive savings. Also last week, we approved about $132,000 for additional leaf blowers, electric leaf blowers. So I think that the small savings that we are having over the past week have been negated by our commitment to sustainability, electric leaf blowers. I look upon next year, we're going to have not only increased inflation, I think more than normal, whatever normal is. We also have to negotiate with our staff and with our police, and we hopefully will be adding additional police officers. So I think that our costs next year are going to increase, and whatever we agree on tonight on a tax increase, these additional pressures are going to make next year's budget and tax increase more expensive. So, and I would just like to address the past, that I know that a minority of commissioners during the no tax increase era favored like a 1% increase, so that we're here tonight. We would be dealing with different numbers. On the other side of that, it was always hard to increase taxes when you have surpluses. So we were kind of caught in that dilemma. I favor the staff recommendation, because if this is what it costs, then we should pay for it now and not later. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Churchill. Anyone else wish to comment? Okay. So before I call the vote on the amendment, excuse me, just want to clarify two things. I haven't spoken on the amendment yet. The first is just for Commissioner Grimes about whether residents or if there's a tax increase, are going to be paying for things that they don't live here for. I just want to be clear about where we are with the budget, where we've been for a long time, or for at least a couple of years. Current residents are getting a great deal because they are getting, they're paying $3 million less than the township is paying to actually deliver everything. Because that's what the deficit is, right? Current year taxpayers are getting more than what they're paying for, right? They are living off of the excess payments of, frankly, businesses in the past. But they are getting a deal for now. And then the second is, so I'm just not going to support the 6.5%, simply because the rating agencies, to the degree that we have any guidance from them, in the last rating agency report said, yeah, there's a deficit, but the township is taking steps to ameliorate that. And to my eye, 6.5% is likely to increase the size of the deficit rather than decrease it. And I don't want to go to the rating agencies with that. Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment, which is to amend the 9.5% to 6.5%, except translate into millage terms, please raise your hand. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, all those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that does not carry. I suspect Commissioner Bernheim has an amendment he'd like to make.
Good guess.
Yep.
So what I'm going to propose is that make a little jump here, and it's not like so much of a compromise, but something I hope that the board can live with, that we go from a 9.5% increase to an 8% increase. That'll take the fund balance to just about 21%. And so that, what that translates to into dollars, if we're dropping down 1.5 points, well, we're talking about, $550,000, $600,000. That's the difference between what's on the floor now, or the 9.5 that would be there. I think that we'd be able to do that. Those who are concerned about the bond rating impact may have less of a concern at that point, and I think those who are concerned that 9.5 is too much, maybe they'll have, and that 6.5 was too low, they'll have comfort in doing that. So I move that we adjust the tax rate increase from the proposed 9.5% to an 8% increase.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Bernheim. Any comments, Commissioner
We
Bernheim?
need a second, maybe?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Bernheim is seconding.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Trying to multitask. Okay, Commissioner Zoll.
Thank you, President Sinai. Many thanks to Ernie and Adam for answering a lot of questions, more so than in a long time, since 2011, since that's the last time a tax increase at this magnitude was considered in Lower Merion. And we've been doing this for 6 weeks. In my opinion, we're here because expenses have been increasing too rapidly for too many years. I think as we move forward, we should be slowing the growth in expenses. I've expressed this before, and in fact, during that 13-year run of zeros on tax increase, there were budgets I voted against because our spending increased more than I think it should have and more than inflation. We haven't talked about this yet, but the budget for 26 is 6% higher than the estimated actual for 2025. It's just too much. Now, I complimented Commissioner Gavrin earlier for his careful view of our spending, and I want to do it a second time on his recent remarks. And I want to also comment about some specifics. We've added many full-time equivalent positions to our budget since 2018. That's full-time as well as part-time, and some were needed, but some I thought were not. And I think we've added too many. And that's part of what we're facing today. Now let's be clear. In my 20 years here, we have never cut staff. Has simply not occurred. We have never delayed hiring approved staff. We've heard that repeatedly from our township manager. So this budget sets gives the manager, once we approve a budget, that gives him the freedom to spend up to the limits in that budget. But I think we've put too many new positions in, and I think we should not put new positions in the coming years. And that goes with my view that we've been trying to do too much too quickly. I've never suggested and would not suggest that we should reduce services. However, I don't think we need to be increasing them every year. And then there's the capital budget. We received over $26 million in one-time federal money. It'll all be spent by next year following the rules. But it's time to, because of that, we ramped up a lot of capital expenditures, but it is time, in my view, to begin slowing that process down. But I think none of it has been because of quote, unquote, deferred maintenance. These have been improvements to our capital assets. I don't agree that we should hold taxpayer money before it's needed. And I do agree that if excess money is here, it is more likely to be spent. However, as we go forward, it is worth a discussion that if we have a high fund balance, a low tax increase may make sense. It's worth a discussion. I think we can increase the revenue budget for the business privilege tax. It's budgeted at no increase in 2026 versus actual for 2025. I also think that it's hard to imagine that our assessed values will not be going up because of the approved land development that is in the pipeline. We know it's coming. We know the numbers. The budget for 2026 has no increase in assessed value. Thank you, President Sinai, for pointing out my projection from last year, which first year of my two-year projection has occurred. And we do know that we have heard earlier today about reduced insurance cost, a recent settlement, less than what we approved 2 weeks ago for battery-powered equipment to comply with our new rules. So that's to our advantage. And I did also spend some time looking at how the rating agencies work. And one metric that has not been discussed is liquidity ratio, which is cash on hand divided by revenues. We've got over $50 million in cash on hand as of the end of November. And all revenue combined is a little under $100 million, so it's about a 55% liquidity ratio, pretty good. And we do, of course, have to be thinking about all the time about our fund balance. But I think it's reasonable to lower the tax rate to 8%. We'll still generate a 21% fund balance. The same fund balance, we will generate at 9.5%. Well, how is that possible? Just rounding. You round down for the 9.5%, and you round up at the 8%, you still get to 21%. I have great respect for my colleagues, and people have spent a lot of time on their reviewing the budget. We don't all agree, and that's why we vote. But everybody's viewpoint is worth hearing tonight. And something that really bugs me, Montgomery County's tax increase is 4.5% because they separated out the community college, which is under their control in terms of taxing. So it's not 4 as they report, it's 4.5%. But that has nothing to do with us. But I couldn't resist. So thank you, President Sinai.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Zeloff. Anyone else wish to comment on the 8%? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to bring this amendment for a vote. All those in favor of the 8% instead of 9.5%, please raise your hand. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, all those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that passes 11 to 3. So it is amended, and someone will translate that into millage for the ordinance. Okay, I'm going to guess that there are no further proposed amendments. Okay, any further comments on the ordinance now that we're here? Okay, so we're going to vote on this 8% tax increase. All those in favor of that, please raise your, so do I need to read it in a different way? You're looking at me like.
No, are you now like adopting the ordinance?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, so I it's going to be, we've amended the ordinance, okay? We'd previously seconded it, we've amended it, the amendment got put in. So now we're going to, oh, right, so we need a roll call vote, don't we? This is one of those things, you would think after 4 years I would have this down.
Did I redeem myself now?
Right, so we're going to ask for a roll call vote.
For the adoption of ordinance 4325, Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Ms. Epstein.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin. Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Dr. Rossman.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Whalen.
Aye.
Mr. Woodring.
Yes.
Mr. Zellow.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're now on to page 34 of your packet. We're not done. Public hearing and adoption of the ordinance, Chapter 155 zoning, tobacco retailer and lot occupation zoning amendments. So I'm opening a public hearing on an ordinance to amend the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 155, entitled Zoning, Article 2 Definitions, Section 155.21 Definition of Terms, to create new definitions for hookah bar and significant tobacco retailer, Table 5.3 Use Regulations, to permit significant tobacco retailer, it's a specialty retail, in the NC, VC, TC, LI, RHR, BMV, and CAD districts, and establish regulations for the use. In Article 3, General to District, Section 155.34, Lot Occupation, subsection F, to restore regulations for maximum height for accessory buildings in the principal building envelope and for those built in the reduced side and rear setbacks. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at the stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held October 22nd, 2025, and duly advertised in the November 28th, 2025, and December 5th, 2025 editions of the Times Herald. We are now going to open the floor for public comment on this ordinance. Anyone in the room wish to comment on it? Okay. We are going to close the public hearing. I'm going to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 4326. Do I have a second? Thank you, Vice President Kramer. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Commissioner Zeloff.
President Sinai, in our packet is a letter from the Montgomery County Planning Commission, a very, very important group that provides excellent advice over the years. It's dated December 2nd, and they recommend that we consider that we reduce the number of zones or zoning districts in which we allow the tobacco retailers and significant tobacco retailers as defined in this ordinance. And they recommend that we do not allow this use in the NC, VC, BMV 1 and 2, and the City Avenue District, Bala Village District. Now, I raised this with staff earlier today, and they recommend that if the sense of the board is that we do indeed do that, we nevertheless pass the ordinance that is before us and ask staff to come back soon for us to consider adding fewer districts to allow the significant tobacco retailers. And little did I know that a new commissioner, a commissioner-elect, was going to bring up this evening something I never heard of, kratom. And they're sold in vape shops. And this is about vape shops. And so I hope that my colleagues see it the same way that Commissioner-elect McGuire does, and that we further limit the zones in which this use is allowed in the coming months, and that we approve what's before us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeloff. And let me just echo that it did occur to me that one of the responses to incoming Commissioner McGuire is that that we are starting to regulate some of these shops. But I think your approach is exactly the right way. If we were to amend this tonight, we would have to re-advertise it. We wouldn't be able to. I think we would like to sooner rather than later restrict these in some places, and it makes a lot of sense. I don't think we need much of a sense to the board. Everyone's nodding to amend this relatively soon.
Good.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. That's a roll call vote.
For the adoption of ordinance 4326, Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Ms. Epstein.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Dr. Rossman. Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Whalen. Mr. Woodring.
Yes.
Mr. Zillow.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're now on to page 41 of your packet, which is the public hearing and adoption of ordinance chapter 155, zoning, freestanding ground and monument signs, zoning amendment. I'm going to open the public hearing on an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of Lower Merion, chapter 155, entitled zoning, table 9.1, permitted sign locations and permit types, to allow freestanding ground monument signs in the MDR2 and MDR3 districts by permit, and table 9.2, general sign type standard and regulations, section E, freestanding ground monument sign, to amend the regulations for height to permit a maximum height of 4 feet for multifamily large buildings and to permit a maximum sign of 20 square feet for multifamily large buildings. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement to the stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held October 22nd, 2025, and duly advertised in November 28th, 2025, and December 5th, 2025 editions of the Times Herald. Does anyone in the room wish to comment on this ordinance? Okay. The public hearing is now closed. I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 4327. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Whalen. Any questions or comments? Okay, Madam Secretary.
For the adoption of ordinance 4327, Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
Mr. Churchill.
Aye.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Ms. Epstein.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Aye.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer. Dr. Rossman. Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Woodring.
Yes.
Mr. Zillow.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Okay, we're now on to page 46 of your packet. It's adoption of ordinance, chapter I-38, tax 138, taxation, implementation of Act 58, affordable housing incentives. This is an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of Lower Merion, chapter 138, entitled taxation, to implement chapters 3 and 4 of the Pennsylvania Affordable Housing Unit Tax Exemption Act, Act 58 of 2022, to authorize real estate tax exemptions for new construction and improvements to affordable housing units in designated deteriorated areas and more broadly throughout the township, providing for definitions, designation of deteriorated areas, application and approval procedures, limitations and conditions, enforcement, severability, and an effective date. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at the stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held November 19th, 2025, and duly advertised in the December 7th, 2025 edition of the Mainline Times and Suburban. I'm going to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 4328, including the following amendment, which was approved at the November 19th board meeting, which was not included in the attached version of the proposed ordinance, which is to amend section 138.57.10b2 to read, the subject property is vacant, underutilized, or exhibits physical deterioration, semicolon, or, and then et cetera. Okay, do I have a second? Thank you, Vice President Kramer. Any questions for staff or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary.
For the adoption of
Oh,
ordinance.
sorry, I missed one. Commissioner Bernard.
Extraordinarily brief. There was an attempt to see if we can get our colleagues at the school board to get a little bit aligned with this, and I'd like to give credit for an excellent presentation to our now soon-to-be outgoing Vice President Sean Kramer. And hopefully, in short order, we'll tell you we have an addendum to your accomplishment list when we twist their arm. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernheim. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, I think we're ready.
For the adoption of ordinance 4328, Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
Mr. Churchill.
Aye.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Ms. Epstein.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer. Dr. Rossman. Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Woodring.
Yes.
Mr. Zillow.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're now on to page 57 of your packet, which is an adoption of ordinance, chapter 145, Vehicles and Traffic Parking Meter Rate Revisions. And this is an ordinance to amend the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 145 thereof, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 15 Schedule, Section 145-122, on highway parking meter zones rates to increase parking meter rates generally in Section 145-123, Schedule 23, off-highway parking meter zones rates to increase parking meter rates in municipal lots generally, and to establish a kiosk rate for the Cricket Garage. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at the stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held November 19th, 2025, and duly advertised in the December 7th, 2025 edition of the Mainline Times and Suburban. I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 4329. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gilda Kramer. Any questions for staff or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary.
For the adoption of ordinance 4329, Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
Mr. Churchill.
Aye.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Ms. Epstein. Yes. Mr. Gavin.
Oui.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Dr. Rossman.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Woodring.
Yes.
Mr. Zella.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
We are now on to page 60 of your packet, which is adoption of ordinance for Chapter 145 Vehicles and Traffic, Lancaster Avenue speed limit and no turn on red restrictions. If you recall, this is something that's already been posted. We're just getting the code to match the signs. This is an ordinance to amend the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 145 thereof, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 15, Schedule, Section 145-101, Schedule 1 speed limits by rescinding the 40-mile-per-hour speed limit on Lancaster Avenue from City Avenue to West Wynwood Road and imposing a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit on Lancaster Avenue from City Avenue to West Wynwood Road in Section 145-103, Schedule 3, by prohibiting right turns on red at Lancaster Avenue and Remington Road for east traffic, at Lancaster Avenue and Haverford Station Road for westbound traffic, and at Montgomery Avenue and Airedale Road for east-west traffic. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement to the stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held November 19th, 2025, and duly advertised in the December 7th, 2025 edition of the Mainline Times and Suburban. Make a motion to adopt ordinance number 4330, and I thank you for the second, Commissioner Gavin. Any questions for staff or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary.
For the adoption of ordinance 4330, Mr. Bernheim. Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Ms. Epstein.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Absolutely.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Dr. Rossman.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson.
No.
Ms.
No, just throwing it out.
Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Woodring. Mr. Zella.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Is there any unfinished business to come before the board? Is there any new business to come before the board? Oh, yes, Commissioner Churchill.
I would just like to make a comment from Commissioner Zell saying we have always hired, but we have never fired any of the new employees. I would just ask the commissioners for next year, there are two positions that I wish that you would consider. The first is we went from a half-time to a full-time grant and development person in the libraries. And for a year and a half, I don't know if we have raised funds to justify that salary. You will consider that in the next year's budget. Similarly, I believe that inspecting commercial areas should not be free, that there should be a fee for that. We hired a fire marshal to take on that and other responsibilities. The fire department is not going to draft a proposal for covering these costs. Combined, I think that would be over $250,000 in next year's or 2027 budget. I would ask the board to consider their performance and act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Churchill. Any other new business? Or unfinished business?
Piss off people.
So with that, the last meeting of this board for 2025 and the last meeting period for 5 of our colleagues, sadly, is hereby adjourned.
Not sad.
Have a good new year.
Commissioner